Hey Indies, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to show you guys how I did a custom bridal jumpsuit for one of my plus size brides. I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded a video, you guys. I've been really busy with my business and I'm trying to still, record in the process. So please bear with me. The videos will be picking up very soon. Anywho, so today I am doing a illusion mesh jumpsuit, not fully illusion mesh. It is also made with Stretch Crepe. I did a little bit of stoning. I also did lace placement. So you're gonna get a good bit of techniques in this video right here. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you are feeling this type of content. We are trying to still reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. That's our first goal. I'm going to make sure I list all of the supplies I use down below in the description box. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So the first thing I'm doing is draping the top part of the jumpsuit. This is the top bodice. So I showed you guys a sketch of the jumpsuit in the very beginning of the video. And basically what I'm doing now is just taking my muslin and I am draping on my mannequin to get my pattern pieces. Now, the good thing about this particular client is she was the same exact size as my mannequin. It was a couple alterations I did have to make to the jumpsuit, but I mean literally bust, waist, hip, everything was the complete size of my mannequin. So I actually lucked up with this client, okay? So all I'm doing right here is just further drafting my top bodice. It's going to look like it is a sweetheart top, but it will, it's actually a halter top. So you guys will see as I go further along in this process. But it was a really easy process, you guys. I love showing you guys the start to finish because I want you all to see how easy it is to create these garments. It really didn't take a lot. I am using basic technique that I learned years ago and that's it. So my whole MO is to not overthink the process, and that is why I like to show you guys exactly what it is that I'm doing. And so as I'm going along, I'm making sure to add my seam allowance. And yeah, so just keep watching to see how I drape this entire look onto the mannequin. Now all I did right here was just maneuver my elastic so that I can get the pattern piece for my sheer fabric, my sheer illusion mesh. So as you can see, all I did was manipulate it, take it from the sweetheart and take it to the neck, and that's how I was able to get my pattern piece for my sheer illusion mesh. And what I did was make sure that I added my seam allowance in my muslin because I was using muslin to cut this. I just did not feel like transferring it to paper for some reason that day. I think I really just had a couple time constraints or whatever. So I had to just go at it from the muslin. When you guys are draping using your muslin, make sure you are labeling your pattern pieces. Make sure you are, putting your I can't even think of the word, you guys. Oh, make sure you're putting your notches on there. Sorry. Make sure you're putting your notches on there make sure you are labeling where everything needs to go, because it is super important, okay? You don't want to take your pattern piece off and then you got to figure out, well, what side was this? Is this the side seam? Is this the princess seam or whatever? So just make sure you kind of label as you go. I like to use a permanent marker when I drape. It doesn't seep through onto the mannequin, but I'm also not pressing really hard either. And then you see everything is back, center, side, back, front, side, front. And then what I did here was, after I got all my pieces, I just went ahead and put them together, make sure everything added up. I did notice that I had to reattach. It seems like I have to pull it tighter once I cut it. So just don't be surprised if, even though you did a ½ seam allowance, you have to sew in a little bit over a half to get a good fit. Now the fabric I'm using is a Stretch Crepe again, and it does have a good bit of stretch in it. So it didn't have a lot of stretch. It's like minimal stretch. So, you know. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm creating her pants. The bottom of the jumpsuit from a pair of pants that I have from a previous collection. So this pattern, I already know that it works for plus size women. It's one of my staples on my website. So what I decided to do was just go ahead and use that and just create her pattern from that. So I'm showing you how I derived her jumpsuit pant leg from a wide leg pant that I already had. And so all I'm doing here is just kind of outlining a little bit, really just the crotch area, because I know that part is exactly right. And then what I'll do is just go ahead and create like these little, I just call them fake lines, because I'm going to end up creating my own pant style anyways. I'm doing like a more tapered pant look. So you'll see exactly how I went about that right here on the pattern paper. You guys, it was so easy. It just, whatever you do, don't overthink the process. Go with your gut instinct. If you feel that you don't know until you try, that's my whole thing. And so as I was doing the pattern, I just kind of took my time with it. I know what the pattern piece is supposed to look like. And then I also had to take into account that my client was short. I think she was about 5'2". So you'll see me just making the appropriate adjustment so that the pant fall correctly in her knee area and flares out where I want it to flare out. So overall, it's a very easy process. So I do all of my line work with my pencil, and then when I'm kind of set in stone on what I'm trying to do, I'll go back in with my permanent marker and I'll make it work. So that's all I'm doing here. And then you want to also make sure you account for the inseam length of the crotch. So that was where I took the top of her bodice piece and just made sure that the inches made sense, because what you also don't want is for your customer to have camel toe. So trust the measurement. I think hers was about a 27. That was her crotch length, from her neck to her crotch. It was about a 27. So that means that she has a very short torso. So you guys, make sure you trust the measurements. Even if it appears to be too long, you want to still keep whatever measurement it was that you took, because if you do not, your customer will have camel toe, or they'll have that serious wedgie or whatever, and you don't want that, okay? Especially if they're thick and they have a nice body shape or whatever. Alright, so you also want to make sure that inseam is appropriate as well. So here I'm just pulling out my fabrics and I'm going to go ahead and begin cutting. So I pretty much laid everything out onto the crepe, and I didn't put grain lines on those particular pattern pieces, but I knew exactly which way it needed to go. So that's all you see me doing here. Alright, so now for the pants, usually you'll have a front pant and a back pant. However, on my particular pattern, my crotch is so long, I didn't have to make a separation between the front and the back crotch. And so I use the same pattern piece for the front and the back. But in order for you to do that, you have to make sure your crotch length is long enough to accommodate the butt, the curve of the butt in the back. If not, you're going to have that little funny thing where when you put on your pants, their crotch, the back doesn't go up, it doesn't rise up to the waist in the back of the butt. Alright, so that's just something, if you are not sure about how that process works, or you're not sure about your pattern, then you should be doing a front pattern and a back pattern. But these are just some little tricks of the trade that I use that have worked for me, especially being an independent designer and still actively having a hands-on in the sewing process for my stuff. So I have to make things quick and easy to get done. Alright, so now we're going over here to the machine. I did speed this up a little bit, you guys, but basically all I'm doing is connecting the princess seams together, and I am sewing them at a 1/2 inch seam allowance for my on my jack machine. Now I did self-line with the crepe as well, so I'm going to sew 2 of these. So you'll basically see me doing the same thing. I'm connecting all of the princess seams together first, and then I'm going to sew on my sheer illusion mesh before I drop the lining in. And the only part that is lined, self-lined, is the bodice, okay? The bodice is the only part that's self-lined, the pants is not. I just serged the serged the seams of the pants and kept it moving because I did not want this to be super duper heavy, but I also wanted the self-lining at the top to cover up the stitching of the lace, the bridal lace. And you guys, make sure after you do your seams that you go and you press, alright? So I didn't show me pressing on the video just to kind of cut back some of the time, but I definitely pressed everything that I sewed, alright? So you guys make sure you get some steam to those garments, because if not, you'll have a lot of puckering on the seam lines. Alright, so now what I'm doing here is inserting the illusion mesh, and basically all I'm doing is pinning it alongside the bust line of the sweetheart top, okay? So you guys got to make sure you pin it first and then sew it. Now you guys don't see me use a lot of pins, but when I'm doing stuff like this, I have to use pins because, you know, the illusion mesh is very slippery, okay? So on this particular project, it's just better safe than sorry. I don't like puncturing my fabric and having to go back and rip seams. So use as many pins as you need to keep this fabric in place, okay? Because it will make it so much easier to sew, I promise you. And I also noticed as I was pinning it up, like my tension was a little off. Not tension, sorry. My, like, the length of it kinda was a little off, so I had to do just a little tugging and pulling. So just make sure you spread out the excess fabric evenly so that you can still get a flat lay, okay? And then I'm going in at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, a 1/4. So that's just to show you guys what it looks like. And with me self-lining, I'm going to self-line, but I'm using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So once I attach the outside and the inside together, you're not even going to see that line, and that's what I'm doing here. So I like to match my side seams, all of my seams up together first, and then I'll put the additional pins wherever I see necessary. Well, you want to make sure those seams line up, okay? So that's the first thing that you see me doing, is lining up the seams and then going in and putting my pins wherever I see fit. And that's just to make sure that I sew on that exact seam line that I created with the shear, okay? So that's all you see me doing. And I'm making sure that my seam lines are open so that I can kind of relieve some of that bulkiness. And you still want to be very careful as you're doing this part, because it can be very tedious. It's getting easier as I continue to do these, but when I first started, it was so hard to pivot in the center with that V line. So yeah, just take your time with it. Make sure you use the appropriate amount of pins, whatever's gonna help you, and just be diligent. Alright, so once I pull my pins out, I want to flip it over and see what it looks like, and that is exactly what it is supposed to look like, but you're gonna have to do a lot of pressing, okay? So now what I'm doing here is I am sewing my pins together, and I'm starting with the crotch first, and then I'm going to go back and sew my darts. I like to split my darts open. I do have a previous video where I show you guys how I split my darts open, and it's just easier for me to sew that way. So once I get them sewn, I make sure I go to my machine and press them as well. Now I am inserting a zipper in the back, and when I was recording this, I completely forgot about my zipper, so I went back and had to open that seam back up. So just the FYI, it is a zipper in the back. What you do to the front, you do to the back. And don't forget to go and press out your seams, press those darts open so they can lay flat. Now I am connecting my pins together. I'm doing side seam to side seam first, and then I like to connect my crotch. And then remember, for this particular pair of pants, this is not lined. The only thing that is lined is the top to the jumpsuit, okay? So I am using a serger to finish off the inside of the garment, just FYI. I don't need the serger for the top bodice, I need the serger for the bottom of the pants, okay? Remember, you guys, make sure you are pressing, okay? You're gonna hear me say that several times throughout this video. Press your garment. So I just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of where we are, and I am loving how this is coming out. Everything is looking good. I know my client's gonna look so good in this. So I mean, this is a good place to be. I'm also adding a neckband here, so you'll see me go back and add that in right now. And I'm just showing you guys how I sewed it. I do a 1/2 inch and then I flip it out, and I sew the ends down to the sheer first, and then I flip that back in, and then I do a top stitch to catch the line in the front. So it's like a little top stitches. That's the way that I close mine. You can either hand sew it, top stitch it. It's kind of up to you. I don't have that type of time today, so everything is by the machine. So I'm just making sure I'm being very careful in how I'm doing this. So you got to make sure you flip it out, pull out your corners so that you can keep that square shape, and then you close the top of it. And so all I do is push it in a 1/2 inch, and I use my pins to hold it down, and where the pins are is where I'm going to top stitch or stitch in a ditch, whatever you want to call it. Just like that. And then I'm going and I'm stitching very close to that line, very close. And then I'll show you guys. That's how I close it. And then you got to make sure that you press that out as well, okay? So everything I'm doing, as soon as I'm done, I'm pressing. Now what I'm doing right here is just laying out my lace. I want to see what my placement looks like. This client does have applique on the front of her bodice, so I had to play around and just kind of see how I wanted to lay it out. I do like to make sure that I overlay and group them because I don't have the time to sew each piece individually, okay? So and I'm also using my clear thread when I do this as well. So that's all you see me doing here is just a little bit of applique placement. This is very important. I was only placing at first in the center of the bust area, but once my client came and tried the jumpsuit on, I actually ended up putting applique all over the entire front bodice, okay? So you'll see that this right here on this video, I may insert a clip of my client in her garment. But it's looking really good so far. Very pleased with how everything is coming out. It's very sexy, it's fun, it's clean, it's elegant, it's giving me all the feels. So what I'm doing here is I'm just starting to sew down some of that applique that I've already overlapped with my clear thread. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I still have a little bit more to put on there, but I just don't want to, you know, overkill or whatever. So I kind of like to sew my applique down in little sections or whatever. So I just kind of start from the outside and work my way into the inside. And I'm really just putting all the pieces together, making it one big piece. So I'm loving the way that it's coming out right now. And as you can see, once I start sewing it down, it doesn't look like individual pieces. It just looks like one big old piece of applique. So that's what I like about this little process. Even though it's tedious, it's a very intimate process to me. You know, I feel like I'm doing some of my best work sometimes, and I'm just really bettering my skill the more that I do this process. So I'm loving the bridal lace. It looks really good right now. And then where I'm sewing down at, I'm going to go back and clean up that around the V area, so don't worry. So what I'm doing is just showing you guys where I am, but also I am about to do this stoning process. So what I did was take one of my garment bags, plastic garment bags. I get these off of Amazon for a very cheap price. I think I get like 100 for like $16. But you want to cover your mannequin first before you do any type of stone application, because I'm going to be using E6000 glue for this particular garment, and I do not want to mess up my mannequin. So what I am doing here is just prepping, making sure that everything is in the right place first before I get to gluing. But I'm going to take my tweezers. I think I start with tweezers, but ultimately I ended up using my hand because I believe this was the same day that my client was coming and I had not stoned the top first. So I just got up very early that morning and went ahead and knocked this process out. Because it's not a lot of stones, it did not take a long time to dry. But you want to also make sure that you don't over glue either. So I started out with my tweezers, ended up using my hands. I do not recommend using your hands. Find a tool that you can use. However, I could not find my little stoning tool, and the tweezers was not picking up the stones the way I needed them to. So I had to do what I had to do, y'all. But it was not a messy process on the fabric, but it was a messy process on my hands. And so as soon as you get done, you need to make sure you wash your hands and get all of that glue off, okay? But I do not advise using your hands. Make sure you use the proper tools. I guess I just wasn't as prepared as I thought I was, because I lost my whole tool. I don't know where it's at, to be honest. So I'm gonna have to order something off of Amazon. But this process, it was so like, no, this is not working for me. So I had to start using my hands. And what I do is I kind of place sporadically first, and then I go back and fill in. So I don't like want to group all the diamonds in one area. I kind of want to, spread them out, see what it's looking like, see how I like it, and then go back and, make the appropriate fixes. Now all I'm doing here is just taking my lace and lining it up, creating more little pizzazz to the outfit, and that's it. Just keeping it moving. And all I'm going to do is just go ahead and sew this down to the neckband. I removed the flower and I'm just going to end up replacing it at the end of the video. So now, I did not get a chance to record the overskirt again, you guys, but basically all it did was come from the side seams of her jumpsuit. You guys know how I get when things get a little bit too busy. Sometimes some process that I don't get to always cover, but overall, it was a very, very easy process. I did this jumpsuit literally in a couple hours. My client absolutely loved it. I did have a few alterations I needed to make, but overall she was very happy. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys are feeling these videos, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. This is a video of my client after she tried on her garment. I did have to make a few adjustments, but she was very satisfied. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, stay happy, stay hungry, and stay blessed. Until next time, Indies. Peace.